Funding for this program was provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Hello, I'm Fred Rogers. I'm glad you could join us today as we talk about using our neighborhood television series and the Plan and Playbook in your professional child care work. My grandfather was one of those people who loved to live and loved to learn. And every time I was with him, he'd show me something about the world or something about myself that I hadn't even thought of yet. He'd help me find something wonderful in the smallest of things. And ever so carefully, he helped me understand the enormous worth of every human being. Now, my grandfather was not a professional teacher, but the way he treated me, the way he loved me, and the things he did with me have served me as well as anyone I've ever known. Somehow, I think that through our neighborhood television visits, I pass on some of my grandfather's love of learning and care for people. And now, through the extension of the neighborhood to child care, I like to think that you'll be able to use what we offer through the television and the Plan and Playbook in your own unique ways. After all, you know best what your children need on any given day. We just want to support your special relationship with those children. I like to think that when they grow up, they'll be as grateful to you for all you've meant to them in their lives as I am to my grandfather. Now let's get on to showing you some of the specifics of the program. My real friend and neighbor, Patrice King Brown, is doing us the favor of being our host. You'll meet her and some others who, like you and me, have a keen interest in television and children. It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood, a neighborly day for a beauty. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I have always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you, so let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Would you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Won't you please? Won't you please? Please won't you be my neighbor? My neighbor?
Hello, I'm Patrice King Brown. In everyday life, I'm the mother of two and a TV news anchor. I also have the pleasure of knowing Fred Rogers and appearing on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. In over 20 years on public television, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood has been coming into the homes of young children, helping them to understand themselves and the world around them. Nowadays, many preschool children are in child care centers or in child care homes. With thought and planning, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood can be an effective part of the child care environment, too. We would like to explore how careful use of a TV program, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, along with the Mr. Rogers Plan and Play activity book, can add to what children learn in child care. Working with public television stations, we hope to provide the tools and information needed to extend Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood into child care facilities. We know that there is much discussion about using TV in child care, so to begin, we asked well-known pediatrician and author T. Barry Brazelton about television and young children.
A child is absolutely hooked on television, in my experience, and that's why they're so exhausted at the end of a period and fall apart, fly apart, because it's demanded so much of their state control, states of consciousness.
We can make whispering sounds. Hear me when I whisper like or calling sounds. Hello?
I think Fred Rogers' program is almost unique in the fact that it doesn't set it up to demand that kind of attention of a child. And I've been very struck with the kind of rhythm that his neighborhood offers, which is you pay attention, then you let down, and you laugh, and then you pay some more attention, you let down, and you weep, or whatever. But he plays it in a very emotionally engaging way, which respects the fact that too much emotion over too long a period is too demanding. So the rhythms in his programs are very respectful of children's rhythms, small children's rhythms.
Dr. Jerlene Daniels, director of the University of Pittsburgh Child Development Center.
There's some television that I've seen kids watch that they're just kind of staring, this blank stare, and they're sitting very still. And that scares me to death because I feel like their minds are being, eaten up, while I'm watching it go. But when they're watching something like a Fred Rogers, something that's more developmentally appropriate, what you see in them, you see smiles of understanding. You can see the thought processes at work.
I want your rabbit. Hello.
You don't have this blank stare. You have them thinking about what they're hearing and smiling and laughing and maybe sometimes even anticipating a line.
As you heard, the child care experts we spoke with believe that much of television is inappropriate for young children. But they say that Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood is an exception because it is specifically designed to address a young child's developmental needs. But can Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood be used effectively in child care as a part of teaching and nurturing children? To find out, Family Communications and public TV station WGTE in Toledo, Ohio, collaborated on a pilot project called Extending Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood to Child Care. In the project, select child care centers used Mr. Rogers' program and the Mr. Rogers Plan and Playbook over a 5-month period. The before and after effects were observed by early childhood experts from the University of Toledo and Lourdes College. Renee Marazon was a consultant to the project.
I must admit that my first feelings about the role of television in daycare started out rather negative. I really never considered that television did have a place. It wasn't until we had completed the project, and actually it was midway through the project, that I realized that not only if there should be, but perhaps there should be Fred Rogers in early childhood settings because of the significant role model that he is for adults working with children. So you can see my views have really swung from television has no place to Fred Rogers should be in the child care setting, modeling for teachers, interacting with children, and providing a resource of content and curriculum materials for the early childhood environment.
Let's have some make-believe. Charlie? Let's think of a time in the neighborhood of make-believe when both a father and a mother have to go away from home to work. Ready, Charlie? Okay, neighborhood of make-believe.
You're not going because I was bad one time, are you?
Of course not, son. If you were a bad person, we couldn't even think of going away. After all, when we go, you and your night and day caregiver will be in charge of this castle. A large job.
I see.
Along with exploring the fears and concerns of young children, Mr. Rogers also celebrates the joy of childhood in moments of simple, delightful play that invite children to participate.
Now let's sing it.
Oh.
Head and shoulders, baby, 1, 2, 3. Head and shoulders, baby, 1, 2, 3. Head and shoulders, head and shoulders, head and shoulders, baby, 1, 2, knees and ankles, baby, 1, 2, 3. Knees and ankles, baby, 1, 2, 3. Knees and ankles, knees and ankles, knees and ankles, baby, 1. Ankles and toes, baby, 1, 2, three, angle the toes, baby. 1, 2, 3, angle the toes, angle the toes, angle the toes, baby. 1, 2, 3. And the way we used to end it was like...
To get the most out of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood in the child care setting, providers in the Toledo pilot project planned its use carefully, because children watch television differently from adults. And the way children watch TV has been the subject of some studies.
Do we have any evidence that watching a little television is good for kids?
Dr. Daniel Anderson at the University of Massachusetts conducted an investigation of children's TV viewing behavior. His team set up cameras in the homes of 99 families for 10 days and examined the resulting 5,000 hours of videotapes. One of the programs watched by families with children was public television's Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Now, we've watched this family quite a bit, and we see that this is pretty typical. The 3-year-old watches Mr. Rogers some of the time, but a lot of the time he's running around or coloring, playing, and the 5-year-old is a real Mr. Rogers fan. He watches every program, and he watches it very attentively. But this is a pretty common thing. In general, younger children pay less attention to the television than the older children, up to about age 5 or 6 years. First and foremost, children do learn from television. There's a popular and misguided belief that children are sort of passively mesmerized by television and everything goes in one eye and out the other ear or something of that sort. Well, in fact, that's not correct. When children pay attention to television, they're in fact actively thinking about the television material. They ask questions about it, they'll talk to each other about it, they'll act out programs in their play, television themes in their play. They'll talk about it later after the program is long gone. Television is having very much of an impact on their lives. So television is a teacher, and at its best, it's a very good teacher. At its worst, it's the kind of bad guy whispering in your kid's ear, and you might not want to do it. That's why it's very important to pick and choose what we show to our kids, and but to realize that all the time television is teaching the children, and all the time the children are learning from television.
As Dr. Anderson suggests, television can be an effective teacher, and children are learning from television all the time. But especially when adults get involved, television can be a supportive and positive teacher. In the Toledo pilot project, child care providers used Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and the plan and playbook intentionally and interactively. That means that the providers decided when and how often in the week to watch the program and when to do the related activity. They set up one area in the center as the TV area and worked with small groups of children, often preparing them beforehand by telling them what Mr. Rogers would be talking about. Karen Rodruck of Toledo public TV station WGTE says providers also learn to accommodate the variety of ways children watch TV.
We need to remember that children watch television in different ways. Some children like to lay down on their tummies, some like to lay on their backs. Some slouch or wiggle around. Some children like to snuggle in the lap of the adult that's watching with them. Or maybe just cuddle up next to that person and have a nice warm arm, reassuring them that it's okay. Some children like to bring their blankets, or maybe the favorite stuffed animal with them to watch television, and that's okay. Also be flexible enough and reverence the child and say, it's okay if you want to get up and leave. When they're finished watching, they know when they're finished. And so if you'll provide some other activities, maybe some puzzles, magic markers or crayons, something quiet in the background that children can go to be involved with while the other children are watching the program.
It's very common for children to get up and leave in the middle of a program or to lose interest in the middle of a program. Daycare providers absolutely shouldn't be concerned about that. It doesn't mean that it's a bad program. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the child. It's just simply that child is not interested at that time. Nobody's ever told them that they have to watch television at home, and nobody should be telling them that they have to watch television at the daycare center.
they get on you.
Kate Reagan, a child care provider who participated in the Toledo project, observed the way her children paid attention to Mr. Rogers on TV.
They'll go off to maybe work puzzles or play with cards or whatever, but they do continue to watch. They'll hear the they'll hear the trolley, or they'll hear Mr. McFeely come in, or they'll hear the phone ring, and they always look up to see. So they're not watching, but they are watching. You know, they're listening and for the parts that they enjoy and the people that they enjoy on there.
Along with accommodating the way children watch television, providers also need to take precautions to ensure that the TV equipment is used safely.
But something that we need to keep always in mind is the safety of the children that we're caring for. And a television can be a very dangerous instrument. A television has all of its weight up front, and it takes very little to tip it over.
The television in your child care facility is safest when it's on a low cart or table, bolted down or secured with a safety strap. Of course, the power cord should be kept out of the path where children walk. When not in use, the television should be stored away from where children will be tempted to play with it, either in another room or a closet, or else covered with a blanket or box. And for safety reasons, it's important not to let the children help you move the set. It is critical to have adult supervision when using television in child care, but even more important is adult interaction. When providers watch Mr. Rogers with their children, they can add so much to what children learn.
Now that
Oh, here's the present.
present. Well, that's a small present. The best things come in small packages. A television set for my television house. Oh.
Fred cannot jump out of the box and respond to the children's questions and extend the content that he's presented on the television. It's the teacher who is there who is able to be a voice for Fred and to continue that relationship that Fred began on the television. And so again, we need to emphasize, I would like to emphasize, the importance of the teacher being present with the child during television viewing.
In study after study, we found that if an adult is present, if the adult is interested, is watching the program with the children, if the adult is able and willing to answer the children's questions, that the children get much more out of the program, and children like it.
Who is that? Who is that big pink?
That was the mother, and she had her babies on her back.
When we watch television with a child, what we say to the child is, I am with you where you are. What you are doing is important to me. What you are learning is important to me.
If you think about literacy and how young children learn to read and write, there's a phenomenon called emergent literacy, which talks about children first becoming acquainted with the printed word from the lap of a parent. You know, looking at a book together, talking about it, the physical closeness.
Who is that called?
The same is true in terms of television viewing. And they need to have someone they know and trust watching it with them so that that adult does for that child with the television viewing the same thing as an adult would do with a child in a book situation.
To reinforce this close personal interaction between adult and child, Family Communications created the Mr. Rogers Plan and Playbook. Roberta Schomburg, professor of child care at Carlow College in Pittsburgh, helped design the play activities in the book.
One of the things that we wanted to do was to encourage caregivers to sit down and watch the program with the children. And so this was a way for them to be able to take the ideas that were on the program and then to follow up with an activity.
Children watching a television program love to get involved in it in some way.
Oh, you use dancing. Well, I sure do understand you.
And I have some wonderful things we can use today to dance with the music.
This is just a great opportunity to have the television and the adult and the whole daycare setting all working together to get children involved in the activities and so on. And on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, the kinds of activities that are presented in almost every program are activities that preschoolers very readily get involved in, are very interested in getting involved in.
Every activity is an experience of life, of materials, sensory experience, tasting, touching, seeing. Every activity engages the child in a very, very active way. And that's really the value of the Plan and Play book. When you combine that activity with the content that Fred Rogers is delivering to the viewer, it's a very dynamite combination.
We've heard from experts that television programs based on the developmental needs of children, programs such as Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, can be a valuable resource in childcare. We've also heard that for television to be a productive learning experience, providers play a critical role by preparing children for the television program, interacting with them during the viewing, and following up with age-appropriate activities. In the next segment, we will take a closer look at Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and some of its important themes and messages. We will hear from some child care providers themselves. We will also hear how Fred Rogers developed his unique approach to children's television. Right now, we leave you with one child care expert's opinion about Mr. Rogers, plus a very special song.
Fred Rogers seems to have a real feel for who's out there watching and the wonderment that they have for the world, and helping them to bridge the gap. And kind of, it's, in his own way, he says, take my hand, we'll do this together. And it works.
Of course, there were many different kinds of dinosaurs. Yeah. And they aren't living anymore on the world. No. No more on the earth. It's fine to wonder about them. There are lots of things to wonder about in this world. Did you know? Did you know? Did you know that it's all right to wonder? Did you know that it's all right to wonder? There are all kinds of wonderful things. Did you know? Did you know? Did you know that it's all right to marvel? Did you know that it's all right to marvel? There are all kinds of marvelous things. You can ask a lot of questions about the world and your place in it. You can ask about people's feelings. You can learn the sky's the limit. Did you know? Did you know? Did you know when you wonder you're learning? Did you know when you marvel you're learning about all kinds of wonderful, all kinds of marvelous, marvelously wonderful things? You are my friend, you are special, you are my friend, you're special to me. There's only one in this wonderful world. You are special. You are.
I think Fred Rogers is a very special person in terms of his ability to see beyond the studio into the hearts of little kids.
Peekaboo. You know who I am? I'm a raccoon, and I will soon be a friend of yours.
Fred has made emotions okay for small children.
He really touches the inner person, and that he really helps children develop a sense of inner worth. And I think that's really important, and I think it's something that's quite often missing in our society.
Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood deals with issues that are very real to the lives of young children. These issues have a place in the child care setting, and no matter what theme Mr. Rogers may talk about on a given day, every Mr. Rogers program reinforces a child's self-esteem. something that's important if a child is to continue learning. In this segment, we will see what some of the themes are on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, how Fred Rogers works these themes into his programs, and how the program itself is structured. We will also look at what effect Fred Rogers can have, not only on children, but on child care providers, too.
Kind of hard to make him go away. Kind of hard to put him down in like that. Just like it's hard for parents to go away and leave their children. And he comes back. It's sort of like a game of peekaboo, isn't it?
Fred Rogers has been involved with children's television for nearly 40 years. He is a writer, musician, a composer, and a puppeteer. Fred Rogers first decided to go into television in the early 50s, when TV was in its infancy.
I was home my senior year from Rollins and saw at Mother and Dad's place some television which I thought was perfectly horrible. It was people throwing pies in each other's faces. And I thought, that seems so demeaning to me. This is a medium that could be used in wonderful ways.
In 1953, Fred went to work at WQED in Pittsburgh, the nation's first community-sponsored educational TV station. He helped create their first children's program.
Why, hi, don't I know you?
The Children's Corner was hosted by Josie Carey. Fred was behind the scenes, playing the organ and putting the voices and personalities behind the puppets.
Earl, Shirley, Morty, and Barbara.
Oh, well, my, that's a nice
Some of the
crowd.
puppets from this early program have evolved into the now familiar characters on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and each one represents personalities and behaviors that children and adults can identify with.
Here he comes now.
Assembled throngs, I presume?
There are only two of us here Friday.
The authority of the king,
I have an imaginary friend.
the shyness of Daniel Tiger, the adolescence of X the Owl, the mischievousness of Lady Elaine Fairchild. We all have lots of facets to who we are, and it's fun to be able to express them.
Along with manipulating the puppets and speaking for them, as he did on the Children's Corner, on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Fred also appears on camera as himself. Every program has a continuity that is reassuring to children. Mr. Rogers enters his TV home every day singing the same song.
Neighborly day for beauty, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Well, I suppose it's an invitation. Won't you be my neighbor? It's an invitation for somebody to be close to you. Because that's what neighbors are. They happen to be in the same neighborhood and close. And I think it's a parable for the desire for closeness. And if you can be close, why then, and if you can care about me, then maybe there are things that you'll want to learn that I have to give you.
Fred Rogers believes that children learn mainly in order to please those they like and trust. The learning begins on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood as soon as he changes into his comfortable sweater and sneakers. Sometimes Mr. Rogers will leave his TV home to go on a field trip in his neighborhood. There are visits to factories to see how people make things like pretzels or sneakers. There's Chef Brockett's neighborhood bakery and Joe Negri's music store, where Fred introduces children to other interesting neighbors, some of whom are very well known to adults, like cellist Yo-Yo Ma.
Did you ever play when you were really angry? Sure, and there's one piece I know of that I love to get into, was this piece.
Often, visitors come to Mr. Rogers' house. A frequent guest is Mr. McFeely, a speedy delivery man who brings packages or films to watch. And there are things that children come to expect from Mr. Rogers. He always greets his fish and feeds them. Fish are important, too.
All of you are fish, yet each one of you is different.
Then, at some point, Mr. Rogers summons the trolley, and it's off to the neighborhood of make-believe, a place populated by costume characters and puppets, as well as real people.
Make-believe is a place that anything can happen, but it's also a place that anything can be talked about. And I think that that's important with the neighborhood as a whole, that whatever is human is mentionable, and whatever is mentionable is manageable.
I've been wondering about something myself.
Something about Mr. Skunk?
Something about mistakes.
What is it?
I've been wondering if I was a mistake.
If you were a mistake? What do you mean, Daniel?
Well, for one thing, I've never seen a tiger that looks like me.
No.
And I've never heard a tiger that talks like me.
No.
And I don't know any other tiger who lives in a clock.
No, neither do I.
Or loves people.
Oh, Daniel.
At the end of Make-Believe, the trolley always takes children back to Mr. Rogers' place. There, he helps them think about and understand the feelings expressed.
Daniel was wondering if he was a mistake because he didn't look or sound like any other tiger that he knew. Well, all tigers are different, just like all people are different. And there is no person in this whole world who is a mistake, no matter how different that person may seem.
Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood often explores a theme for an entire week, a subject like mistakes, or creativity, nighttime, or secrets. Some weeks are devoted to talking about grandparents or fathers, but throughout each program are supports for a child's curiosity about the world, and for the emerging awareness for body and feelings. Most of all, there is a constant reassurance of a child's self-worth.
There's only one person in the whole world like you. That's you yourself. And people can like you exactly as you are. I have lots of things to take with me. I'll be back next time.
A child's hunger for somebody saying, I like you just the way you are, is, almost insatiable.
Probably a really important aspect of his approach to the child audience is the pacing of his delivery and the simplicity of his language.
Just like most living things, it grows when we're not watching. Remember last time we looked at it, it was right about here.
Often, growing and learning on Mr. Rogers is something to sing about. The neighbors in Make-Believe sometimes stage elaborate operas, but more often, Fred Rogers sings. His songs deal with things that children understand, according to Peggy Charon, president of Action for Children's Television.
Mr. Rogers uses music in a very interesting way. He really gets the message across through the songs. I think that pacing is part of that. It's slow enough so you can really hear it.
Some are fancy on the outside. Some are fancy on the inside. Everybody's fancy. Everybody's fine. Your body's fancy. So is mine.
The first time I heard Mr. Rogers on television, he was singing. He was singing that song about your body and my body, and I was in the kitchen making something, and I thought, she was a singing psychiatrist on television for children. And in a way, he has such an understanding of how children work that he is sort of a singing psychiatrist when children most need one.
What do you do with the mad that you feel when you feel so mad you could fight? When the whole wide world seems oh so wrong and nothing you do seems very right? What do? Do you punch a bag? Do you pound some clay or some dough? Do you round up friends for a game of tag and see how fast you go? I'd like kids to know that they have a lot of choices. In fact, on the neighborhood, I think that we offer a smorgasbord of ways of saying how you feel and who you are. And I'd just like, puppetry and music might be my ways, but it might not be for some kids. Dancing or photography or welding. Who knows what it might be for some kid, but I'd like to show them a whole lot of ways of expressing who they are and how they feel.
Offering children many ways to express themselves and their feelings is one reason why Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood fits well into the Child Care Center. Dr. Suzanne McFarland, Research Director for the Toledo Pilot Project, lists other reasons.
Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood stands as a unique phenomenon in television for young children. There's a consistency of format. The content and the episodes are always developmentally appropriate. They're age appropriate. The programs are very predictable in the sense of Mr. Rogers' pace, his explanation, but he always conveys the attitude that there is value in the person and a genuine respect for the person.
As Dr. McFarland says, there are many positive things Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood can offer children. A little later, we will talk about the benefits of combining this program with the Mr. Rogers Plan and Playbook. But in the Toledo Pilot Project, researchers were also looking at whether the program could have an effect on child care providers.
I thought, they've got to be kidding. How would a Mr. Rogers program change me? I thought, that's silly. Could you hear that? When they asked the question at the last workshop, I have to say yes. I got a lot out of that show. I got a lot of gentleness. That's what I think that Mr. Rogers has.
Both the directors and the teachers themselves felt that they were calmer, that they had slowed their pace, that they had become more realistic in their expectations of the children. And I think that overall it helped improve the self-esteem of the teachers, because by doing that, they were feeling better about their interactions with children.
I think that a person who works with young children, who looks at Mr. Rogers and then tries to model their behavior towards the children they work with, the way Mr. Rogers tries to relate to his audience, is likely going to be a very successful interactor with children.
I've learned not to yell as much as I did or raise my voice and speak softly, and they've been tuned into that. They listen to him, and now they listen to me a little bit more better.
Y-O-U. That spells you. I wish I could give it to you. I'm just a television friend, a television teacher. Your real teacher at school has lots of things to share with you. Whenever you go, I hope you can remember how many wonderful things there are to learn about.
Fred Rogers has most definitely rubbed off on the providers in early childhood settings. They have given anecdotes of their experiences having viewed Fred Rogers on a daily basis themselves. Their own attitudes towards themselves changed. They began to value themselves more. They began to forgive themselves for making mistakes, as Fred Rogers would deal with that issue of mistakes. They began to recognize that their ideas were good, as Fred Rogers talked about creativity.
I trust that you're growing in ways that will help you with whatever feelings you may have when you're a child and when you're a grown-up.
We all need to be viewing Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood because we all need to be spoken with and to be affirmed in the way Fred Rogers can do it.
Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood has touched lots of people, young and old. As we've seen, it is a carefully structured program designed to deal with the emotional growth of young children through songs, through puppets and make-believe, and through direct discussion. The pacing, language, and content of the program are geared for preschool children. Its consistency of format, like that of a favorite bedtime story, is reassuring and comfortable. The most important theme of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood has always been to support the self-esteem of children. And maybe it's not so surprising that in doing so, Fred Rogers touches adults too. We'll close this section of our program with an episode from the neighborhood where a young boy named Jeff Erlinger visited Mr. Rogers and demonstrated his wheelchair. They talked and then sang a neighborhood song together.
Do you know that song that I sometimes sing called It's You I Like?
Uh-huh.
I'd like to sing that to you and with you.
Okay, sure.
It's you I like. It's not the things you wear. It's not the way you do your hair. But it's you I like. The way you are right now. The way down deep inside you. Not the things that hide you. Not your fancy chair. That's just beside you. But it's you I like. Every part of you. Your skin, your eyes, your feelings. Whether old or new. I hope that you'll remember, even when you're feeling blue, that it's you I like. It's you yourself. It's you. It's you. I like. And it is you I like, Jeff.
Thanks.
You can make believe it happens or pretend that something's true. You can wish or hope or contemplate a thing you'd like to do. But until you start to do it, you will never see it through. 'Cause the make-believe pretending just won't do it for you. You've got to do it. Every little bit, you've got to do it. Do it, do it, do it. And when you're through, you can know who did it, for you did it. You did it. You did it. It's true.
We've been talking about the positive effects of watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood in the child care environment. And throughout this program, you've heard providers and child care experts refer to the Mr. Rogers Plan and Playbook. This is what they were talking about. It's a companion to the neighborhood programs, a book filled with information on over 600 episodes of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. It has hundreds of educational activities that tie into the program's themes. Roberta Schomburg helped develop the many play ideas in this book.
We knew from the work that's been done on children's television viewing that when they have something to do afterwards that goes along with the program, that you get more lasting effects from the television viewing. The other thing that we felt was very important is that the activities reflect the philosophy of the program. This was an activity book that was more than just activities to do with your child. It was really how to talk to your children, how to help them understand their fears, how to help them express some of their fears through pretend play.
Can you put your baby to bed like Mother put you to bed? All right. Who wants to be first? Nicole, do you want to put your baby to bed?
It's hard to find activities
Now, what
that are
would you
developmentally appropriate for children and that really tap into some of those themes, like their fears about going down the drain or their fears about getting a shot at the doctor's office. And these are the kinds of themes that we pick up on in the Plan and Play book so that the caregivers can talk with the children about those feelings and they can provide activities that help them work through some of those feelings.
And put your baby to bed. Oh, does your baby sleep on her stomach? Is that how your new baby sleeps?
When using the Mr. Rogers Plan and Play book in a classroom of, say, 20 children, probably the way the caregiver is going to get the best use of it is going to be by setting up small groups and having the activity that we've suggested as one of the options during the time when children are initiating their own activities.
Deciding when and how to do the play activities is important, just like deciding when and how to watch Mr. Rogers on television. In the pilot project with PBS station WGTE in Toledo, Some providers did the plan and play activities before watching Mr. Rogers, and some did them after. Usually, the caregivers described the activity before the children started, tying it into what was happening in the neighborhood.
Love made the mighty, love made the very small. Love made the world, made the people. Love made it all.
What should we sing to this baby?
Rock-a-bye, baby.
On the treetop, when the wind blows, the cradle will fall. When the bough bends.
One of the things we know about young children is that their play is really important in their lives. It's one of the ways that they help recreate the experiences that they have. It's one of the ways that they help organize their experiences as well. And it's also the first step in symbolic thinking. It really lays the foundation for later success in reading, in being able to tell stories, in being able to think about things.
The activities in the plan and playbook are hands-on activities that get a child's senses and imagination involved. Of course, child care providers must feel free to use their own imagination and their knowledge of the children in their care to get the most from the book, according to Karen Rodruck of WGTE.
The Mr. Rogers Plan Playbook is not a set of rules for children, for child care providers to use. It doesn't have to be done every day. The book is really a resource. It's a friend to be used as the teacher and as the children want to.
The Mr. Rogers Plan and Playbook is designed to help providers in their work taking care of young children, and the book is very easy to use. We'll give you a brief overview of its contents. The first few brightly colored pages outline the purpose and philosophy behind the Plan and Playbook. The blue page is a letter from Fred Rogers, talking about how important child care providers are in helping young children to learn and grow. The orange pages provide 6 helpful hints for using the Plan and Playbook. This section includes advice about interacting with children as they watch Mr. Rogers and do the activities. Creative play is the topic of the green page. Child's play is one way children discover things about the world, and there are many helpful and respectful ways that adults can participate in a child's play. These white pages are the listings, information, and activities for over 600 episodes of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Let's open to page 334 and look at a typical week's listings. This week includes show numbers 1576 to 1580. The theme for the week is mistakes. Each week's listings begins with a section called Thoughts for the Week, written by Fred Rogers. Right below the Thoughts section is a list of songs that Mr. Rogers will sing that week. And underneath that is a list of any special visits that will be held during the week and the episode number in which they appear. The columns that follow have information on the programs for every day of the week. For example, here is episode number 1576. At the beginning of every Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, the program number is listed like this. The back of this book contains other reference material. These peach and yellow pages are how-tos and props for additional activities. The pink pages are simple recipes for snacks. Starting on page D1, these green pages are the words to Mr. Rogers' more popular songs, so that providers and children can sing along. The final orange pages contain an index of all the activities in the book. And in this back pocket is a program broadcast schedule. Not every week of programs has a theme, but those that do are listed in this right-hand column. For example, here's the week on mistakes that we've heard about. Look up Wednesday's program in that week, number 1578. Then flip to that number in the book to find information about the program and related activities. This book contains more ideas than providers can do in a year, but they are all suggestions. Providers shouldn't feel that they have to do them all, not by any means. They can pick and choose what they think children will enjoy. These are all activities that help children and caregivers grow in positive ways. The child care providers who were given the Plan and Playbook to try for 5 months say it worked very well for them.
I love the Plan and Playbook. Just love it. I just hang on to it. somebody borrowed that I wanted back. I don't let it out of my hands too often. I just love it.
I call the Mr. Rogers Plan and Playbook a jewel. I think I've written it many times, my jewel.
I think the Mr. Rogers Plan and Playbook is wonderful. I have several curriculum books that I have gotten over the years, and as soon as we started this program and I looked through it, it's the only book that I use. You don't need any other book. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and the Plan and Playbook gave providers a variety of new subject areas to explore with their children. Renee Marazan, consultant to the pilot project.
Teachers frequently said, I never thought about mistakes being an area of curriculum. And when Fred Rogers had that as his theme, and the Plan and Playbook talked about that theme and showed teachers how to relate activities, they got very excited about the new subject area.
One day he did something on health care, dental care.
Just a little dab will do. And you also don't need very much water. Just get it wet and then turn the water off.
That was a biggie for me because in the Plan and Playbook is a recipe for toothpaste. So we made toothpaste and everybody, we were given toothbrushes at the dentist. So that was a big thing that day.
What we're going to make today are collages. And we're going to use the nice shiny paper. You can use the silver side or you can use the pink side. Okay, so when I give it to you, it's your paper and you can use whichever side that you wish.
Along with suggestions for materials and projects, the Plan and Playbook also provides questions and guidelines for providers to help children talk about their experiences.
Many caregivers say to us that they really appreciate having the talking about activities, that it's hard to come up with open-ended questions that help children talk about their feelings, and that can be very helpful.
Who would like to be a crab and crawl around with a shell on your back? Would you like to do that, Taylor? I would be tired. You'd be tired.
Caregivers tell us that they have changed the way they interact with children based on watching Mr. Rogers with the children and in doing some of the activities. They tell us they have gained new insights into what some of the worries are that children have, what some of their developmental concerns are, and they find themselves much more in tune with the inner child in themselves as well as in the children that they're caring for.
I'm taking care of you, taking good care of you. For once I was very little too. Now I take care of you.
Young children need to be taken care of in many ways. Watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and working with the Plan and Playbook, child care providers in the Toledo pilot project learn new ways of caring for children.
It helped us develop a little better an understanding of what child care really is. It's not, learning the alphabet and learning the numbers in a foreign language. You also need to be able to show the children facts of life and how to develop in life.
I would say to teachers today, unequivocally, that viewing Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood can have and does have a positive effect both on them as well as the children they're caring for.
I would say to people who are skeptical of the medium, as well as the message and the messenger, just sit down and watch it. And don't watch it by yourself. Sit down and watch it with children. And listen to and feel their very genuine responses to the man.
As Dr. Jerlene Daniels suggests, try watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Try using the program in your child care facility. It can be rewarding for both children and providers, and it's easy to do. All that's needed is a television, set up in a safe way, the Mr. Rogers Plan and Playbook, and a broadcast schedule of the episodes and when they air. PBS stations can provide local schedules, And if the broadcast time is not convenient for child care providers, they can tape Mr. Rogers' programs and show them at a time that fits their schedule best. Public television stations will also make available a quarterly newsletter for providers who want to use Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Please feel free to write Family Communications or to station WGTE in Toledo, Ohio, to share your questions, comments, and suggestions. We'd like to hear from you. I'm Patrice King Brown. Thank you for joining us to explore using Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood in childcare. Now here's the song that ends every Mr. Rogers program. And we hope it gives you a good feeling to know that your concern for children is helping them every day.
It's such a good feeling to know you're alive. It's such a happy feeling. You're growing inside, and when you wake up ready to say, I think I'll make a snappy new day. It's such a good feeling, a very good feeling, the feeling you know that we're friends. At the end of each of our neighborhood visits, I usually say something like, you've made this day a special day by just your being you. There's only one person in the whole world exactly like you, and that's you yourself. And people can like you exactly as you are. You know, I can still hear that grandfather of mine saying something like that to me whenever he'd have to leave me. And I realize it's not just children who like to hear that they're acceptable just the way they are. I think we all need to know that wherever we are in our life's journey, there are going to be people who respect our capacity to keep on growing. One of the greatest things you can ever give to the children in your care is your own honest willingness to continue to grow yourself, to be delighted by things, puzzled by things, intrigued by things, right along with them. Having a good feeling about what you do with your children is one of the best gifts you can ever give them. Thank you for whatever you do to help the next generation grow in healthy ways.
What's new at the movies? Find out on the next Sneak Previews, Thursday night at 8:30 here on WQED 13, where you belong. Funding for this program was provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
This is PBS.